Our curiosity can get the better of us sometimes, and we like to push buttons, flick switches, and open doors just to find out what happens. But some mysteries have to remain mysteries. From an impossible-to-open temple door to the door to a seed vault, here are 20 mystery doors that should never be opened. Number 20. The last door to the Padmanabhaswamy Temple. The Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Tiruvananthapuram, India, pretty sure I nailed that, is as mysterious as temples get. It has 8 secret chambers with some incredible treasures inside, and authorities have already allowed 7 of those chambers to be opened. However, the very last chamber remains closed. A beautiful large gate, believed to be guarded by 2 saints, lies at the entrance. Some people think there's a massive room with treasures behind it, and that sound waves from a secret place have sealed the door shut. A 7-member team authorized by the Supreme Court of India has been unable to open that final door, even though they believe there might be valuable items like gold, silver, stones, and precious gems worth $20 billion behind it. Experts in the esoteric field think opening the door could be risky. Not only does it have no crank, nut, button, opening mechanism, or even any hint for how to open it, but it also has carved serpent figures on each side that almost act as a warning for anyone wanting to open that final chamber. Some people think a Naga Bandhana or Naga Possum has sealed the gate, which means to tie something valuable up with serpents like cobras. They believe the only way to open it is with the voice waves of a specific person. Sure, we could just use our modern tech and blast it open, but if we do, saints warn of terrible catastrophes for Indian people and the world.
Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping.
Now, it's time for the star topic. When a family in Canada purchased a home they had only seen photos of, they were shocked by what they discovered when they finally moved in. They had heard about mysterious doors that can never be opened, but they had no idea that they would have one of their own. They quickly discovered a scary-looking white door covered in locks and chains bolted to the walls that said, "Don't go out," in red lettering on the front of it. The family was so spooked by their mysterious door that they never did attempt to open it for all the years that they lived there. What do you think was on the other side of that door? Comment down below with the hashtag StarTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 19. A hidden door under the Sphinx. Egypt has long been one giant treasure hunt. It sometimes seems like no matter where archaeologists dig, they uncover precious trinkets and the mummified remains of loyalty. And even though we've been fossicking around there for decades, we're yet to solve one of the greatest mysteries involving an unidentified door. Could there be an underground door leading to the Giza pyramids underneath the Great Sphinx of Giza? Quite possibly. British historian Matt Simpson, who runs the YouTube channel Ancient Architect, stumbled across documents suggesting the Great Sphinx of Giza might have a hidden door leading to an underground layer connected to the pyramids. Matt said that the Sphinx used to have 3 stels in front of it, which are stone or wooden slabs. In this case, they were probably stone. King Thutmose built the Dream Stel between 1479 and 1425 BC, and it remains in place. The other 2, built 2 centuries later by Ramesses the Great, are now in the Louvre Museum in Paris, and experts have rarely spoken about them, which that's a little unusual, don't you think? Finally, Matt spoke of 2 missing stels that he found images of in a book by Howard Weiss dating back to 1837. He said there's a Sphinx on top of a platform adjacent to Ramesses the Great, who is given an offering, and the Sphinx is sitting on what appears to be a doorway. It also looks like there's a doorway beneath the Sphinx on the Dream Stel. Number 18. The door to Onkelo. Nuclear waste is a pretty big problem. It can remain dangerous to us for millennia, so it's never easy knowing what to do with it. It's not like you can just dump it in landfills and forget about it. And that's where Onkelo comes in. Onkelo means cavity in Finnish, and this particular Onkelo is a metal shutter between walls of gray rock with a nondescript doorway in the middle of Olkiluoto, western Finland. Here is where nuclear waste from Finland's 5 nuclear plants will be placed for at least 100 years before the primary access tunnels filled with rubble and concrete, and the entrance is sealed. Essentially, Onkalo has been made to protect humanity from falling to its knees if nuclear waste were to leak out into the world. Construction of the Onkalo began in 2004 and would eventually consist of up to 43 miles of tunnels spanning about 0.77 square miles. Spent fuel would be sent there from the early 2020s for the next century until 3,250 nuclear waste canisters containing 6,500 tons of uranium would be safely stored there away from humans. Now, that's a door you should never open. Number 17. Taj Mahal Locked Rooms. The Taj Mahal Mausoleum in India receives hundreds of thousands of visitors annually, and you can view many parts of it. But did you know there are 22 locked rooms within it that visitors aren't allowed to see? Speculation is rife about what might be behind those 22 locked doors, and there was even a petition for a fact-finding committee to study and publish the real Taj Mahal history and open those sealed doors to rest the controversy. But the Allahabad High Court dismissed that petition. Judges said that such issues should be left to historians, scholars, and academicians. According to spokespeople for the Archaeological Survey of India, the 22 rooms in the Taj Mahal's basement aren't even rooms. Instead, they are doors fixed to a long arched corridor to utilize the space better. The same unnamed spokesperson also said that the rooms were cleaned regularly and that there wasn't even anything on the walls. The only reason they kept tourists out of there is that there's nothing of interest there, and it protects from unnecessary movement in an unnecessary space. Number 16. The Secret Door to Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is an Incan citadel in the Andes Mountains of Peru. The structure, with huge blocks of dry stone forming the walls without the use of mortar, was built in the 15th century and later abandoned. Since then, it has been quite a popular tourist attraction. You would think that with the amount of traffic through Machu Picchu, someone would have immediately noticed a secret door, but it wasn't until 2010 that it was spotted. French engineer David Crespi found a bricked-up door and launched an investigation with French explorer Thierry Hameen. With the use of infrared rays and modern instruments, they learned that a cavity on the other side of the door might function as a mausoleum. They also think gold, silver, and ceramic offerings might be inside, along with the mummy of Emperor Pachacutec, who originally ordered the Machu Picchu to be built. Armed with information about what might be behind that secret door, David and Thierry requested permission to remove the stones covering the door, but authorities denied their request. They didn't think their evidence was strong enough and that removal of the structure could cause irreversible damage, so we might never know what's behind that door. Number 15. Steel door to the Svalbard Seed Vault. You know how you store files locally on your computer and then maybe put those duplicate files onto a hard drive or into the cloud? Well, that's basically what the world is doing with their seeds. We have our local seed supplies, but we're also storing duplicates of those seeds inside a massive global seed vault in the northernmost inhabited part of the world. Known as the Svalbard Seed Vault, it's a vast vault 328 feet in the permafrost on the edge of the world in Spitsbergen Island, Norway, that stores 850,000 seed types from 5,000 core crop species. Those hundreds of thousands of seeds are just 18% of what the vault can hold, but it's a great start. In total, the seed vault is designed to preserve 4.5 million seed varieties, or 2.5 billion individual seeds, for centuries as a just-in-case measure. Who knows what kind of manufactured or natural disaster we'll see in the years to come. Each variety consists of 500 seeds wrapped in aluminum packets, stored in boxes, and placed carefully in the vault behind a sealed steel door. And you can't just visit it, because our survival on Earth depends on that precious vault. You're only able to go to the vault if you have seeds to place in it with the approval of the Norwegian government, and it's only opened 3 times a year. The seed vault is off limits and unstaffed for the rest of the time. Number 14. The Lascaux Cave. While the true story about how Lascaux Cave was found isn't precisely known, there's one story about its discovery that seems to be reasonably truthful sounding. Allegedly, 4 teenagers found the cave in 1940 while looking for a lost treasure supposedly buried in a secret tunnel in Montignac, France. One of the boys' dogs ran ahead and got stuck in a hole. They pulled the dog robot out of the hole and noticed it was bottomless. They believed they had found the entrance to the tunnel and decided to explore it. Realizing Realizing it was dark, they went home to make a lantern and returned. As they ventured into the cave, the teens realized it was a large 10-foot-long, 40-foot-wide room, and the walls were covered with artwork of animals. They told their school teacher about their discovery, and that's how word got out. Within just 8 years, thousands of visitors were flocking to the cave to see the 600 paintings and 1,500 engravings that experts think were made 20,000 years ago. However, those huge tourist numbers were causing damage due to the accumulated breath and algae that had been brought in on footwear. The cave was closed to the public in 1963, and tourists have had to make do with a replica ever since. Number 13. Room 873. The Fairmont Banff Spring Hotel in Canada is easily one of the most beautiful hotels in the country. It's also one of the oldest, having opened during the Canadian Pacific Railway's construction in 1988. It's a highlight of any trip to the area, but you might notice something unusual as you meander the hallways. Room number 873 is missing, and there are signs that it used to be there. According to some reports, a family was killed in room 873. After an investigation took place, the entire room was refurbished and made available to travelers once more, but it caused nothing but problems. Guests started reporting disturbances like lights being turned on, bloody handprints being spotted on the mirror, and hollow screams waking the guests. In the end, the hotel management decided to seal off the room, remove the door, and cover it with drywall to make it look like room 873 was never there. Except there are obvious signs that the room is still there. For example, every other floor has a room ending in 73. There are also lights positioned above each doorway, and there's still one above where room 873's door would be. You'll also spot that the baseboard is cut where the door would have been, and the wall sounds different in that spot when you knock on it. Number 12. A storage room. I'll tell you which door you would never want to open, and that's one leading into a storage room containing a deadly smallpox virus. In 2014, a government scientist was cleaning out a storage room at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, which the FDA has used since the 1970s, when they found a cardboard box containing vials of smallpox that were decades old. There were 6 glass vials in total, which had been sealed with melted glass. According to the CDC, the virus might have been dead. But the issue is that the viruses within those vials might not have been dead, and that could have spelled disaster. Smallpox was declared eradicated in the 1980s, and authorities were under the impression that the only samples left of it were in top security labs in Russia and Atlanta. And yet, here we are with dodgy vials in a cardboard box in a dusty old storage room. That's not great news. Labeling on the vials indicated that the virus had been placed in the vials from the 1950s, but as the building didn't open until the 1960s, it's unknown how long they had been there. No contamination was found inside the building, and no one had been infected. CDC officials say that as the viruses were stored at room temperature for many years, they were likely dead. But oddly, FDA officials said the vials had been in cold storage for decades. They plan to perform a lab analysis to determine if the vials were still dangerous and would then destroy them. Number 11. The Mausoleum of the First Qin Emperor. The Xianling Tong District is famous for the Terracotta Army, which was built to protect Emperor Qin Shi Huang in death. This emperor was famed for having conquered and unified China in 221 BCE, and he's buried in a tomb under a 249-foot-tall pyramid mound within that district. If we dig him up, we could solve many, many historical mysteries, but it's unlikely we will ever see inside his tomb. According to archaeologist Kristen Romey, nobody has been in the big hill where the emperor is buried. One of the reasons is that it's a form of disrespect for the elders, but experts have also revealed that they just don't have the technology available to excavate the site properly. As it stands, we've spent nearly 40 years excavating 2,000 clay soldiers around the tomb, and experts think there are probably about 8,000 of those in total. Kristen believes we'll be digging there for centuries. Kristen also says that we lost an incredible amount of information excavating King Tut's tomb because we didn't have the right tools or techniques. So if we wait until those right tools and methods are available for excavating the first Qin Emperor's tomb, there's hope that we'll one day solve some of those historical mysteries. Number 10. Area 51. Remember when we planned to storm Area 51? those were the days. But Area 51 remains a mystery, even though the government and military have been kind enough to declassify many interesting and juicy documents about things that have happened throughout history. Area 51 is a military base about 80 miles from Las Vegas, Nevada, that has been at the center of many conspiracy theories. Most people call it Area 51, but the government simply calls it Nevada Test and Training Range and parts of the Edwards Air Force Base. The fact that many people signed up for an event to storm Area 51 is a reasonably good indicator that we're not allowed to be there. The base is restricted to the public, and there are both warning signs and armed guards preventing access. I guess part of the reason why there are so many conspiracy theories surrounding what goes on at Area 51 is that we're not allowed to see for ourselves whether they're true or not. Some people say scientists reverse engineer alien technology there, especially the remains of crashed saucers from Roswell, New Mexico. Some people have also suggested it's a dumping ground for toxic waste. Number 9. Pablo Escobar's secret safe. No matter how many ways you search what was inside Pablo Escobar's secret safe, you probably won't find the answer. Either the new owners didn't want people to know, or there simply wasn't anything inside it. In 2016, the new owners of the Colombian drug lord's former home decided to demolish the property and build a new one in its place. During the demolition, workers found a metal safe hidden under the concrete that weighed a whopping 50 stone. Even as the property sat vacant for decades, it had been there untouched the whole time. When it was discovered, a plan was put in place to store it inside a bank vault with armed security until the property owners decided to open it. According to the owners, Christian de Berjuar and his wife, Jennifer Volpe, the safe was locked and unbelievably heavy. They said they had hit one of the walls, and when they started to knock it down, rubble hit the foundation, sinking the floor and causing the safe to be revealed. They identified it as something gray, and when they grabbed it with the excavator's claws, they realized it was a safe. One of these days, we might just find out what was inside. What do you think was in there? Number 8. North Brother Island. When you see how much house prices have rocketed amid a scarcity, it's hard to believe that land still sits vacant with no development underway. But utilizing available land isn't always straightforward, especially not in the case of North Brother Island. North Brother Island lies near a tidal strait called Hell Gate, which used to be a dangerous whirlpool responsible for hundreds of shipwrecks. The island, which is off limits to the general public, was chosen as the home for the Riverside Hospital in the 1880s. It became a quarantine hospital for New Yorkers with infectious diseases and illnesses like tuberculosis and smallpox. As technology and healthcare advanced in the later parts of the 19th century and early 20th century, it was no longer as necessary. By the time the 1940s rolled around, it was used to house World War II returning veterans and sometimes juvenile offenders. But the island, spanning 20 acres, now sits abandoned, and nature is starting to overtake the remaining structures. While you can still visit it, you must have permission and be escorted by someone from NYC Parks. Many New York City mayors have pondered what to do with the island over the years, like using it as a Rikers Island jail extension or accommodating the homeless, but so far, no decisions have been made. Number 7. Black Dolphin Prison. The doors to Black Dolphin Prison aren't mysterious, but there are plenty of other reasons you wouldn't want to open them and venture inside. This prison, which is officially called Penal Colony No. 6 of the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia, is a correctional facility in Russia near the border of Kazakhstan for prisoners serving life sentences. The name Black Dolphin comes from a black dolphin sculpture at the main entrance. From the outside, it's quite an aesthetically pleasing facility, but it's a jail for the worst of the worst. About 700 of Russia's worst criminals call Black Dolphin Prison home, including cannibals, serial killers, murderers, terrorists, and child molesters. Inmates remained isolated in their cells, which have 3 sets of steel doors. They're allowed to exercise for 90 minutes a day in a cage and are frequently searched for illegal items. And alongside being under constant supervision, they aren't allowed to rest on their bunks until bedtime. Due to the risk of prison escapes, all inmates are blindfolded upon arrival and whenever they're transported between buildings. This reduces the risk of them being able to map out the prison to plan an escape. Number 6. Chernobyl. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant, about 81 miles from the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, was the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster in 1986. On April 26th, operators were planning to test the electrical systems when, against safety regulations, they turned off vital control systems. This action resulted in the reactor reaching unstable and low power levels. At 1:23 a.m. that morning, an explosion happened, and Reactor 4 was destroyed. Radioactive debris from reactor components and fuel rained over the area 5 fire spread to adjacent buildings, and toxic fumes and dust were carried over great distances in the wind. The initial explosions caused 2 plant workers to die, and those fatalities grew in the days after the incident due to radiation sickness. Around 36 hours after the accident, Pripyat was evacuated, and an 18-mile area around the plant was sectioned off. Over a period of 3 years, about 220,000 residents were told to move to less contaminated sites. It's hard to know when Chernobyl will be completely safe, but it has bounced back to a degree. Many animal species have thrived in the absence of humans, and some people have started resettling on the outskirts of the exclusion zones. There are also higher visitor rates to the area than there used to be. Number 5. The Queen's Hidden Door. Buckingham Palace is massive, and most people probably wouldn't be surprised to learn there are hidden rooms or passageways that aren't immediately obvious. According to some reports, the Queen has access to secret passages in the palace that aren't within public view. For example, within one of the most famous parts of Buckingham Palace, the White Drawing Room, there's a door leading to a corridor tucked away behind a large mirror. This corridor takes the Queen to her private apartments and allows her to get there without interruption. Apparently, the corridors are also in place so that when the Queen meets guests in the music room, she can make a quick entrance without walking through all the many different palace rooms. Reporter Kate Garraway from ITV's Good Morning Britain was given access to this very room to see the passageway firsthand. Some sources have also revealed that the Queen has a secret escape tunnel at Windsor Castle, which is in the form of a trapdoor hidden under some carpet. When you learn that the royal family's London-based palace homes have 188 staff bedrooms, 52 royal and guest bedrooms, 92 offices, 78 bathrooms, and 19 staterooms, you probably wouldn't blink an eye to learn there were various hidden and escape rooms. Number 4. Doorway on Mars. NASA's Mars rovers spent a lot of time exploring the surface of Mars, sending pictures to NASA so that we can see what's going on up there. The goal is to learn as much as possible about the red planet so we can learn about its viability for us to live there one day. Every now and again, those rovers pick up some interesting sights, like faces, spoons, and weird-shaped rocks. But in 2022, they also picked up what looked like a secret doorway in the rocks. When extraterrestrial fans saw the door-like shape, they lost their absolute minds. They were convinced it was a door for alien life, and some even said that the shadowy figure in the doorway was an alien. Surprisingly, the photos were released to the public for at least a week before anyone actually noticed the rocky door. For some reason, people seem to think scientists and NASA are embroiled in some kind of a cover-up hiding the existence of alien life on Mars. But if that were the case, why would they release photos of what looked like a door? Why wouldn't they just keep that photo to themselves? Number 3. The Vatican Secret Archives. One of the world's most secure buildings isn't one housing piles of gold, silver, and precious artifacts. It's not even one holding the world's most dangerous criminals. Instead, it's the Vatican Apostolic Archives, which holds account books, state papers, and correspondence from the Vatican Church accrued over the centuries. While they all used to form part of the Vatican Library, Pope Paul V ordered their separation from that library during the 17th century. As a result, scholars found it nearly impossible to study the records since they were closed to outsiders. In the late 19th century, Pope Leo XIII made the archive accessible to scholars, and now thousands of them study the documents yearly. It's easy to assume that when the archives are called Vatican Secret Archives, everything within them is top secret, but the name is all down to translation. The Latin word for archives is archivum, and secretum means private or personal rather than actually secretive. Since 2006, archive department employees have been working hard to organize the 16 million pages of documents within the Vatican Secret Archives so that they can be inspected by scholars easier. Number 2. Bab-Zuela. Bab-Zuela, also known as Bawabat al-Mitwali during the Ottoman period, is a gate in the city wall of the old city of Cairo in Egypt. It's one of just 3 remaining gates like it, and the last remaining southern gate from the walls of the Fatimid-era Cairo from the 11th and 12th centuries. Today, it's one of the most significant landmarks in the city, and you'll understand why when you learn its history. Cairo was the royal city of the Fatimid dynasty when it was founded in 969, and in 1092, the vizier, which is a kind of political advisor, Badr al-Jamali, ordered a second wall to be built around the city. The southern gate in the wall was Bab-Zuela, and it also had twin towers that you could access via a steep climb. This gate and general vicinity became useful for scouting enemy troops in the nearby countryside, but today it's a great place to see broad views of Old Cairo. Number 1. Gunung Padang. If someone were to ask you which pyramids were the oldest in the world, you might talk about the pyramids of Giza. Sure, they are pretty old, but are they the oldest? Actually, no. While the pyramids of Giza were built about 4,500 years ago, the pyramids in Java, Indonesia are believed to be over 20,000 years old. Surprisingly, these pyramids, known as Gunung Padang, have only been located quite recently, and that's because they blend in with the landscape and appear to have been formed over several thousands of years in layers. In total, there are 4 layers. The surface layer is believed to be about 3,500 years old, the second about 8,000 years old, the third 10,000 years old, and the fourth much older. Carbon dating was used to give these layers an approximate age. The reason for this pyramid being built remains unknown, but it appears to be built like a terraced structure on an existing volcanic hill, possibly for worship. But further research might be required to determine its exact reason for existence. It's hard not to want to open a door that's never been opened before to see what's on the other side, or even push a button that says "Don't push." But if you got the chance to open any of these doors, which one would you open and why? Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.